So, Madam President, we're ready to begin.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So great to see you all, those that we can see. And Dr. Dunn, we were just talking about that a little bit. We are so ready to be in person, but for now, this is what we have. So I am Janice Hernandez, LRTA State President. I'm calling this board meeting to order. Thank you all for being here today. In addition to the board and our guest speaker, we have members and unit and district officers who are watching or phoning in also. And I want to thank you for your continuing support. This is not an ideal way to meet, but in these trying times, we are fortunate to at least be able to use this method to conduct our business. I particularly want to thank our excellent staff for all they have done and continue to do to keep LRTA thriving. They certainly make my job easier as we adapt, sometimes at the drop of a hat, to the ever-changing world around us. All of the board members should have received your packets in the mail, and I hope you've had time to read through all the materials. And for those of you who do not have packets, we will, in many cases, you may not see the whole report on the screen, but we will give summaries to so you will know what we're discussing. And in order to keep things moving smoothly, Jennifer has created this PowerPoint presentation, complete with motions when needed. So you will be able to see on the screen at the appropriate time when we would want to make a motion. So please feel free to do so at that time, and to please say your name first, because sometimes when several people are doing it, we can't make out exactly who is talking. So if you wouldn't mind saying, Hernandez, I move such and such, that would be appreciated. All right, let's begin now with our invocation. And I've asked Javella Williamson, our District 4 President, and our District President representative on the board to do that this morning. Javella.
Let us focus our hearts and minds on these inspirational words. When God placed you into his family, he took responsibility for your life and your problems. David said better than anyone has ever said it, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing." God is a God of unlimited resources. When you trust him, you move beyond your understanding, beyond your comprehension, to a dimension of belief where you're willing to relax in life because you know there is a great, all-powerful, loving God watching over you. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for another opportunity to come before your presence with thanksgiving in our hearts. And we thank you for this day, oh God. We thank you in advance for the blessings that are yet to come. Lend us your spirit in this meeting this morning. Let it rule and abide in our hearts and minds, that we might use godly wisdom in all of our deliberations. We pray, dear God, for restoration all over this land, for those who have been impacted by Hurricane Ida and experienced damage to their property. Father, we pray that they be comforted. And oh God, we pray for those who have suffered loss of loved ones, oh God, due to sickness and disease. We pray that you give them peace and joy. And oh God, my Father, I ask a special blessing for everyone represented on this call. We pray for every family represented, oh God. And we pray, oh God, that their homes would be homes of peace and prayer, that you would keep them safe and in thy care. And oh God, my Father, we pray that in all we do and say this morning, that it will be done to your glory and your honor. Let us be careful, oh God, to give you the praise. We bless your name as you bless your people. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Beautiful.
But
Janice
Janice
may have
popped off.
got bumped off.
Janice got bumped off.
She said she wanted to do the pledge.
Yes,
You want to
take over.
I'll see. Janice popped offline. She'll be back on in a moment. But at this point, we're going to ask Clyde Hamner to lead us in the pledge.
If everyone doesn't mind, please mute your microphones during the pledge to prevent feedback. I'm getting a little feedback already. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're still waiting on Janice, but at this time, I'm going to ask Renee Saccone to perform the roll call.
Sure. Ms. Hernandez is here. Ms. Quigley? Here. Ms. Watterson?
She was here.
Okay. Mr. Hamner?
Here.
Mr. George is not with us. Ms. Geraldine Williams has designated Billy Picard as her replacement. So Mr. Picard,
Here.
Ms. Foster,
Here.
Ms. Williamson. I know she's here. Ms. Saunier,
Here.
Ms. Mouton. I know she's here. I see her.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers is not yet joined the meeting. Ms. Gordon,
Here.
Mr. Rivers,
Here.
Mr. Galat, Dr. Shepherd.
She was here earlier.
I saw her, yes.
She must be on mute.
Dr. Bodan,
Here.
Dr. Taylor,
Here.
Ms. Copeland, and Ms. Hayes. I know
She was
she's here. I saw
earlier.
her.
She's here.
We do have a quorum. As soon as Madam President returns, the meeting will proceed.
I can see the screen again now. It came back. I have no clue. I apologize, everyone. It froze. My screen froze during Debella's prayer, and then it said reconnecting. So I thought it was the office having problems again. So I waited and finally texted, and I don't know. I had to restart everything. So I hope I can get through. So it looks like Rodney texted me. Have we done the roll call?
Yes, and we have a quorum. We're ready for the approval of agenda.
Thank you. Let me move along.
That was a fair assumption for her to make. You know, we've had some issues with.
Yes, with the problems the other day. Yeah, I was just like, okay, must be our internet again. But all right, so I'm still showing roll call on my screen.
All right, we're going to switch over to the next slide.
Introductions.
Yes, I did have introductions. That's why I had next. I wanted to be sure. So our guest today is Catherine Whitney from TRSL. Catherine is well known to us. She has been with the TRSL since 2008 and has served as Deputy General Counsel, Deputy Director, and as TRSL Executive Director for this past year. We're fortunate to have someone with her experience and expertise in charge of our retirement system. Once you hear her report, I know you will agree. Welcome, Catherine, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We'll be hearing from you soon. All right. Now, approval of today's agenda. So board members, I'm sure you've looked through this, see your attachment on the minutes on the agenda for the board meeting. I'll give you just a few seconds to look over that in case you made some notes or something. All right.
Freddie Rivers, I move to approve the agenda.
Mr. Rivers has moved to approve the agenda of today's fall executive board meeting. Is there a second?
Rogers, second.
Welcome, Mr. Rogers. Thank you for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion is carried. That worked out great. Thank you. Next slide, Jennifer.
Let me see. Go back.
Nope.
Here we go.
There we go. Thank you.
All right.
Our next item, approval of minutes of the executive board meeting held on April 20th. Again, let's look at your packet. You should have a copy of that. A few seconds if anyone made notes or any comments, corrections. All right. Hearing none.
Okay, Rivers, I approve of the minutes of the last meeting.
Mr. Rivers has moved to approve the
Second.
minutes.
I'll second it. Hamner.
Clyde Hamner has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you. Motion carries. All right, so now we're going to move along to our committee reports. Our committees met last week. And I want to thank all of you for serving on these committees. We appreciate your efforts in doing this. The Zoom has made it somewhat easier. We can meet more often. It's not without its problems, as we can see. But I do want to thank everyone for serving us in this way. I will call on our Budget Committee Chairperson, Roxanne Lagarde, to give her report.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being with you this morning. Our Budget Committee met last week, as Ms. Hernandez said. We had a great meeting with a lot of discussion, and the presentation was done so professionally by Rodney and his staff. At this time, I'd like to share with you just a brief summary of the Budget Committee, and we'll follow any questions that you may have after. The LRTA Budget Committee meeting was held at the LRTA office last week virtually with limited in-person attendance due to, of course, our social distancing mandates. The purpose of the meeting was to conduct a mid-year review of the actual revenues and expenditures compared to the 2021-2022 operating budget, which you approved last year in April. Present virtually were committee members, Mr. Jerry Page, Ms. Noreen Smith, and Ms. Geraldine Williams. Also present in person was the chair, myself, along with LRTA President, Ms. Janice Hernandez, and then, of course, our LRTA staff, Rodney Watson, Renee Saccone, Morgan Milling, and Jennifer Tran. We also had the pleasure of having several of our LRTA executive committee members present, Ms. Nancy Quigley, Ms. Lizette Watterson, Mr. Clyde Hammer, and also our district president representative, Ms. Javella Williamson. And so as you can see, our membership was very well represented at the committee meeting. The Budget Committee wanted to focus on 3 items for the presentation and for following discussions. Those 3 items were the mid-year budget review, the budget revision request, and the LRTA Merrill Lynch investment account report. We began the meeting with our Executive Director, Rodney Watson, presenting the mid-year budget review. In a summary, Mr. Watson compared the approved 21-22 budget to the actual revenues versus expenditures. He explained to the committee that the revenues were on target at approximately 40% at mid-year, and that membership was consistent within the same time frame last year. Additionally, the expenditures in every category of the budget were on target and below expected spending. Of course, a lot of this was due because we've had to cancel some of our, many of our meetings, if not all. And with that, the expenditures were less. Overall, at this mid-year review, the LRTA budget was being followed as approved. And Mr. Watson, shared with us that the organization is financially sound. At mid-year, the approved budget of $685,475 has spent from April 1 through September 30th, $273,763.43, which equates to 39.9% of the budget. And you should have that in your packets, the documents that we were presented with last Tuesday. At that time, the motion was carried and the Budget Committee approved the 21-22 mid-year budget report. Also, following the agenda that day, Mr. Watson was asked to discuss the recommended revisions to the LRTA budget. Due to the Budget Committee and Audit Committee meeting now virtually, the approved funding of those committees would not be used to support travel and meeting in person as had hoped for when we budgeted in the spring of last year. So Mr. Watson explained the recommended revisions of transferring $3,200, and that would be from the Audit Committee and the Budget Committee's budgets to the Legislative Committee budget. The transfer of these funds would accommodate activities associated with the Legislative Committees that would accrue unexpected expenses. So we just mainly were asked if we would move those to a different category. The motion, again, was carried and the Budget Committee approved the transfer of $3,200 from the Audit Committee and the Budget Committee funding and moved over to the Legislative Committee budget as recommended. Our final topic during the meeting was to address the Merrill Lynch investment account. Just a reminder to everyone, due to the volatility of the market at the time in the fall of 2020, with the approval, the sum of the Merrill Lynch investments was moved from a stock market portfolio to staggered certificates of deposits to protect the principal. Mr. Watson provided a brief report on the investments and explained that although the interest earned was relatively low, the entire principal was protected and fiscally sound. And that amount was $681,353.31. On a motion by Mr. Page, seconded by Ms. Smith, that carried and the Budget Committee accepted the investment report. At that time, there was no further questions or comments. And with that, a motion was made to adjourn the meeting. And that is my report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne, for that very thorough report. Again, I appreciate your all your hard work in this.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions or comments regarding this report? Okay, hearing none.
Do you need a motion to accept the minutes?
It's
Yes.
on the screen.
On the screen, motion to accept the mid-year budget report and to approve the LRTA mid-year budget revisions.
Okay, Madam President, I move to accept the LRTA mid-year budget report and to approve the
Mr. Hamner moves. Mr. Hamner has moved. Is there a second?
Rivers, second.
Is that
Rivers.
you,
Rivers.
Mr. Rivers? Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, our next item, our next report rather, should be the Audit Committee. Dr. Dunn, again, thank you for chairing this and for conducting the meeting last week. And would you please now give your report?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make an editorial change to the report that you have in your files. change the third word from budget to audit. There was a little clerical glitch there, so this is an audit committee report rather than a budget committee report. The LRTA audit committee meeting was conducted by Zoom with limited in-person attendance due to social distancing mandates resulting from the continued COVID-19 outbreak in Louisiana. At 9:32, the meeting was called to order, and committee members present were Genevieve Gordon, Paul Grethel, Billy Picard, and Jan Webb. Also present at this Zoom meeting were Rodney Watson, Renee Ciccone, Morgan Milling, and Jennifer Tran of the LRTA staff who hosted the meeting at the office, as well as Mrs. Janice Hernandez. In addition, Brittany Timms, CPA and auditor, was present through Zoom. Also present on the Zoom meeting were members of the LRTA Executive Committee, immediate past President Nancy Quigley, first Vice President Lizette Watterson, second Vice President Clyde Hamner, and District President Representative Javella Williamson. Prayer was offered by Dr. Dunn, followed by Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Quigley. Ms. Ciccone conducted the roll call and declared a quorum was present. Dr. Dunn asked Mr. Watson to present the scope and presentation of the audit. Mr. Watson and Ms. Ciccone provided an overview of the annual audit preparation, including document preparation and the site visit conducted by the auditors on August the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Mr. Watson then asked Brittany Timms of Hawthorne, Wayworth, Raymouth, and Carroll to provide an overview of findings of the completed LRT audit for fiscal year 2021. Ms. Timms reported that LRTA again received an unmodified and clear opinion, the highest rating that a business can receive, due to comprehensive and accurate report keeping, procedural safeguards, and transparency in documentation. A motion was made by Mr. Picard, seconded by Ms. Webb, and carried to accept the 2021 LRTA audit report. As we compared the 2020 budget and the 2021 budget, we discovered a few anomalies and topics that may be of interest to the board. I would like to ask Rodney Watson to share those with us now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a point of reference in your packet, we've codified the packet so we can make reference to each of the committee reports and reports from members of the board. These, in this particular case, if you look at items 3B in your packet, that's in the upper right-hand corner. One was, the first is the audit report itself, where Dr. Dunn made a correction. And then behind that is the disposition letter from the auditors. My experience with the Department of Education, at one time I had probably the majority of state and federal funds under my direction, where auditing was a principal component of how we monitor districts. My attitude toward an external audit is that it's not an external source coming into our business and finding faults, but going in and doing an analysis and providing good technical assistance on what we're doing well and what we could do to improve. We have a great relationship with our auditors. We're very open with our auditors about where our strengths and deficiencies are. We do suffer one recurring deficiency. It's a material deficiency relative to segregation of duties. When you have a business this small, we only have 4 employees. Everybody has their share of the responsibility, but then what do you do when your bookkeeper is responsible for entering the checks, making the deposit slips, taking the deposit to the bank, et cetera? In other words, then entering the expenditures and revenues. You should have, under ideal circumstances, different people doing different things as a accountability or procedural safeguard. And it's unavoidable. Most businesses our size get the same type of finding. But we have worked hard to put in some safeguards. For instance, we have 19,000 members, nearly 20,000 members. That's a lot of checks that come in at $30. So when the mail comes in, we have different people count it so that we can keep a check on that. And then after Morgan opens the mail and gives the checks to Renee to enter into our database, we can do a comparison of how many members did she enter into the database versus the number of checks. In other words, we're trying to do safeguards. When bank statements come in, I look at them first before Renee, because she's the one keeping the books. So I go in there and I check before I give it to her. On our credit card statements, I look at it first, then the state president looks at it, then the chair of the budget committee looks at it for anomalies. So we do what we can, because we know we're honest, but we're not going to always be here. And you read stories every day about small businesses where money has been absconded. So outside of that, I think we're doing a really good job. Wanted to point out, and this will come up in membership committee, we did make a statement in one of the reports that our membership was about where it was the same time last year. But we went through a big drop last year. We're about 1,400 members below where we were the previous year before the pandemic. 600 of those were auto deduct members. The only way that you are taken out of auto deduct is if you make a request or you pass away. And we had no request. I worked with Catherine. We thought actually there was some kind of data corruption. Worked with Catherine at TRSL and it was a legitimate number. So for whatever reason, whether it's an aging population, the pandemic, a combination of both, we lost a lot of auto deducts. That's predictable income. And we lost a lot of active members and lifetime memberships. That is reflected in the audit. Fortunately, we've had cost savings in the last year. We had about $90,000+ left on the table. We put 50,000 of that in the investment account and then 40,000+ in carryover to pay for some capital expenses that I'll explain in my report. All in all, we talk about this in the audit committee. Dr. Dunn wisely said, let's bring it to the board too. They need to know what we're doing well, what we're working on. Just wanted to let you know, accountability is at the forefront of management in this organization. And thank you, Dr. Dunn, for allowing me to make those comments. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. I appreciate that. At the conclusion of our meeting, a motion was made by Mr. Picard, seconded by Ms. Webb, and carried to accept the 2021 LRTA audit report. With no further business to report, a motion was made by Mr. Grethel and unanimously seconded to adjourn the meeting at 10:18 a.m. This is our audit report. Thank you.
Dr. Dunn, at the appropriate time, Madam President, the motion for the committee.
Yes, the motion is on the screen to accept the audit report.
Foster,
So moved.
I move to accept the report.
Gail Foster has moved to accept the report. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Picard.
Mr. Picard, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess I should have asked her questions ahead of time too. I'm sorry. Thank you all. Motion is carried. All right, the next item is the executive committee report, which I will present. And for those of you with a packet, please note a correction on the first sentence. It's October 12th, not April 7th. Renee will correct the permanent record. So the executive committee met on August 25th and October 12th, 2021 to discuss LRTA business. At the August 25th meeting, all committee members except for Lizette Watterson were present, as well as all staff members. As a side note, I felt I wanted to note that Lizette was not at that meeting. And for those of you who don't know, because her husband Larry passed away a few days before that meeting. Please remember her and your family in prayer as she mourns this great loss. Despite this, and even despite the fact we were telling her, please don't worry about LRTA business at that time, has continued to perform her duties, and I appreciate her dedication to us and to our organization during this difficult time. Were discussed. Meeting survey results. We had surveyed the members to see how they would prefer to meet in the fall. We started in early summer and people were thinking positively, and most people were voting to have that meeting, the meeting then. Later, as it got closer and the Delta variant kicked in, we did another survey and more people were a little leery about it. So we left it up to the districts to decide how they wanted to do their meeting. We talked about fall district meeting updates, our district expenses, our district president term limits, our fall meeting update, and then the nominating audit and budget committee updates, as well as a membership update. Then at the October 12th meeting, all committee members and all staff were present. The following items were discussed. The internal audit and audit committee meeting to be held on October 19th, our mid-year financial report and budget committee meeting to be held on October 19th, an update on our retirement and legislative issues. Committee members also review the tentative agenda for the virtual executive board meeting to be held on October 25th, and a motion to accept the agenda passed unanimously. This concludes my report. And it was document 3C in your packet, so you all had that to look at ahead of time as well. So I'll move to motion number 5 to accept the executive committee reports for August and October.
I, Lizette Watterson, move that we accept the motion.
Ms. Watterson has moved. Is there a second?
David Gillette, I second the motion.
David Gillette has seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Now we'll move to the nominating committee report. Gail Foster is the chair. Rodney would like to say something before this report. So Rodney.
Yes, so our nominating committee operates differently than the rest of our committee structure. According to Robert's Rules of Order, all of their meetings are conducted in privacy. As you know, through our newsletter and through our website, we communicated with our entire membership to submit names, nominations for our state officers. Once that deadline passed, then I met with the nominating committee, provided them with the perspective sheets. Then they go into a private session to discuss the ballot. So for that reason, you're never going to see a report or minutes of that committee. That's so that they're not unduly influenced by outside sources. So just want you to know that the report you get today has been done according to Robert Rules of Order and according to our bylaws.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rodney. And we have no knowledge. We don't see any of this. And so we're anxiously awaiting Gail's report. And thank you for serving. If you remember last spring, I believe the board, rather than having another election for a nominating committee because of all the circumstances we were going through at the time, we decided to, we asked the nominating committee from the last time to continue, and they all agreed, and we appreciate that. So Gail, at this time, would you present your report?
Yes, thank you, Janice. The nominating committee met August the 26th by way of a virtual meeting, and we determined that the nominees were highly qualified and voted to accept all nominations. For president, we have Lizette Watterson. For first vice president, we have Clyde Hamner. For second vice president, there will be a runoff between Genevieve Gordon and Alva Martin. The nominating committee appreciates the willingness of these members to serve, so we hope all will vote and you will receive a ballot in the mail. Are there any questions?
May I make a comment? So if I heard correctly, we have 2 unopposed. We
Correct.
changed our bylaws a few years ago. that stated if only one person were put on the ballot, that the board would declare them winners by acclamation. And if there were two or more, they would be placed on the ballot for our statewide membership to vote. So we'll need to make the appropriate motion once you entertain other comments and questions.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions? I'm very excited, and thank you for those of you who are willing to serve and were willing to run. We appreciate that. Anyone else?
Madam President, would you repeat the names, please?
Yes.
I'll ask the chair to repeat that, please.
Yes, for president, we have Lizette Watterson. For first vice president, we have Clyde Hamner. They are approved by acclamation. For second vice president, there'll be a runoff between Genevieve Gordon and Alva Martin. Those are the ones we will vote on.
All right. Thank you. Congratulations to those elected, Clyde and Lizette. It's exciting.
Madam President, so we need to make a motion.
Yes. We're on the motion now. The screen is up, ready for a motion if there are no further questions or comments.
I move that we accept Lizette Watterson and Clyde Hamner as our president and vice president, first vice president elect.
Nancy Quigley, second.
We're accepting the nominating committee report. Right,
Yeah.
Mr. Rivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But actually, Janice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Correct. We're going to need a double motion because we didn't know what the report was going to say.
Oh, true.
So the last time this happened, you had a two-part motion. You accepted the ones that were single. In other words, as Freddie said, I agree with him. You would accept by acclamation President Lizette Watterson and Vice President Clyde Hamner. And you would also approve Genevieve Gordon and Alva Martin to go on the statewide ballot.
Okay, should we just stick with accepting the report first and then go to those motions?
No, it has to be all one.
No, it's just all in one, like you said.
It would be all in one, like I said. We put that as a placeholder because we didn't know what was on the ballot.
Right. All right, Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Thank you. Would you restate your motion, please?
Okay, I move that we accept the nominating committee's report and accept Lizette Watterson as president and Clyde Hamner as first vice president, and for Genevieve Gordon and Alva Martin to be in a runoff for the second vice presidency.
Nancy Quigley seconds the motion.
Moved by Mr. Rivers, seconded by Ms. Quigley. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations to all. And I'll give you best wishes to have an actual meeting in person. All right. We're going on now to the president's report. Again, you got see attachments. I'm not sure if it's an attachment, but yes. All right. We're going to talk about the spring meeting, district meeting format, and I am not going to say if anymore. We will have in-person district spring meetings. I know we're all ready to get back to normal, and I really think it's important to have face-to-face meetings again. And Dr. Dunn was even mentioning that before our meeting started. This past summer, we were all set to do this in the fall when the Delta variant caused cases to increase, and many members responded to our survey saying we should change to virtual. Our state fall meeting almost made it to fruition, and we continue to adapt to changing scenarios, planning to meet in Baton Rouge at the Embassy Suites. Then Hurricane Ida said, not so fast. Most hotels needed their rooms for emergency workers and repair crews, so we lost our rooms at the Embassy Suites and had no choice but to resort to this virtual meeting today. We came that close. But next spring will be different. Can't you feel it?
Amen.
With vaccination rates going up and booster shots being administered, we should be in a much better position health-wise. You should have found the schedule for the spring meetings in your packet, and I hope we'll begin making your plans soon. And I did have one note, if you saw the list, it was actually item 10A in your packet. There was a correction on week 1. The first one listed, Tuesday, March 8th, is actually District 8. 7 was already just a little typo on that. So the very first Tuesday, March 8th, District 8. And now district funds, please remember that you still have access to your funds for this fiscal year. And since most of you incur no expenses for fall meetings, you should consider other ways to spend your funds. Remember, we don't carry over any funds, but on April 1st, you will get your full allotment for the next fiscal year based on your membership at the time. If you look in your packet, there was a tab 10 that's taken from our guideline book. And you can check to see what is and is not allowed. This would be an excellent time to do a mailing or anything else you think would help with membership recruitment. And so if you look at that tab 10 attachment, you will see that your intended uses of district dues, district meeting activities, everything related to that, membership recruiting activities, special events or activities, district operation supplies. So between now and our spring meetings, you may decide to try to have some type of meeting or social or whatever. Your funds are available as usual, and for any of these other things that are mentioned in the guidelines. Prohibited uses, you will see equipment, reimbursement of expenses exceeding LRTA's travel expense allowance, and direct transfer of funds. So if you have any questions about that, if you are not sure, you can always, look to the guidelines for directives, look to other guidelines, and call the staff, of course, if you have any questions regarding any of these items. Next item is COLA that I wanted to talk about. COLAs have been a high priority for me as president, and most important as my term is about to end. It was part of the reason I set a goal to increase our legislative presence through direct and indirect action. I had hoped to see units and districts having more meetings with local legislators and encouraged our members to even consider running for office themselves. And then, of course, we couldn't have any kind of meetings due to the pandemic, and we were never able to initiate this effectively. But we did start a new program called Voter Voice, and that will be a great help to us in contacting our legislators to encourage them to approve a much-needed COLA. We do have some news to share, and you'll hear more about that from Rodney and Catherine. Just remember that even though we jump through all the hoops and funds become available, we still need legislative approval. So we will need to kick into high gear to contact our legislators and educate them on the need path. We're already planning on ways to do this at our spring meeting. We need you to be ready when called to action. We are fortunate to have an executive director who has established an excellent rapport and communications with the TRSL executive director. We will be successful with the two of them working so hard for us. Next item, I'd like to welcome Clyde Hamner to the TRSL board. We're extremely proud to congratulate our second vice president and legislative chairperson, Clyde Hamner, and now newly acclaimed first vice president, Clyde Hamner, who successfully ran for and won the retiree position on the TRSL board. We know Clyde is well versed in our needs, and along with Dr. Taylor, will represent us well when his term begins in January. And the last item I would like to discuss is to thank Dr. Bodan for his service to the TRSL board. The seat that Clyde fills is currently being held by Dr. Jerry Bodan, who decided not to run again. He has been a trustee representing retirees since 2014. He also previously served as a trustee on the board while actively employed from 1987 until 2010. So I guess after these about 30 years, it's okay that he's retiring again. We owe him a debt of gratitude for all his work in protecting our benefits and ensuring that we have one of the best retirement systems in the country. Thank you, Dr. Bodan. We truly appreciate you and wish you the best. This concludes my report.
I think I'm on.
Next slide.
Can you do the sign?
I'm sorry.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you. Next item, as you can see, is our Executive Director's Report by Rodney Watson. Rodney?
Madam President, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
Let's see, Jennifer.
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me, Janice?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We had to switch computers.
Okay.
All right. Just on a point of personal privilege, this is my 6.5 year in this job, and I'm just amazed at the quality of leadership from the committees to the state officers. How I just see the level of commitment and professionalism improve, making our organization stronger. So thank you for your service, because it is all voluntary. Very quickly, there is a list of items I'm going to quickly go through this morning under item 5. 5A, the first one is just a recap of the last session we had. You're pretty familiar. There were 2 bills that we were actually involved in. One was SB 22 by Beryl Peacock, which would raise the retirement age from 62 to 67. That would be disastrous without taking much of the committee's time. The Louisiana Public School Coalition fought this and was successful in blocking the bill. Senator Peacock's not too happy about that, so we're going to have to keep an eye on him because he's term limited and he has an agenda, so we're going to keep an eye on what he brings this year. We also had Senate Bill 24 by Senator Ed Price, which was basically a hardship COLA. And it affected, I think, around 800 of our members. It sailed through. And of course, that was a catch-22 because we gave it to 800 members. We got a lot of calls and emails at our office. Well, what about the rest of us? But we explained to them that there had been precedent for this and that we were working on a COLA for this year. The rest of the bills, for your information, are listed under 5A of your packet, and they were also in our newsletter. 5B, if you look, we do have an election coming up November 13th. There are constitutional amendments you might want to pay attention to. Basically, it's tax reform. Most of that's tax reform. We didn't take an official position, but in 2015-16, there was a tax reform commission that looked at the archaic system of the way we collect taxes and who gets taxes. We opposed it in 2016 because they wanted to remove the exemption of our retirement income from state income tax. This year, that was not the case. I'm just going to say anecdotally, these 2 bills would probably create a more stable structure of collecting taxes and who pays taxes in our state. It's taken a long time to get here. If you look, most states are collecting taxes based on the way these 2 constitutional amendments are written. So short of endorsing it, we always get calls from our members, but we pay for education, MFP, through the tax structure, both state and local. And if we do have a more stable form from year to year where we can predict what the budget's going to be, that might be something members would consider supporting. So not really asking the board to support as much as giving it some attention and passing the information on to members as it becomes available. The next thing is understanding. Also, there are some elections in 3 areas of our state. In Southwest Louisiana, I think in Northeast Louisiana, Mid Louisiana, there are some candidates running. We send out a survey to everybody who runs for office, asking them how they support retiree initiatives. Those are in your packet for you to review. And if you see on the survey, if they answered yes and it's green, that's a good thing. And that might be some information you want to share with members who are both on this call and you as officers of the organization to help them make a well-informed decision. So that's really item B. The next area is understanding COLAs. You know, a lot of our members, when they start griping, is why aren't you giving us our COLAs? And our members don't understand that we pre-funded your retirement. We did not pre-fund COLAs. When you made your contributions, you were making it for a base benefit. Yet we have a COLA law that says what triggers a COLA and what conditions they undergo. So we have worked with TRSL and morphed some information into a handout for you under 5C. It kind of goes through the steps necessary to award a COLA. We've got some really, really good news this year. I'm not going to say too much other than there is enough money in the account to award a COLA. Catherine's going to talk about that in her presentation. And so we want to make sure that our members understand it, because we're going to have to go statewide when a COLA bill is presented to the legislators, because the first thing legislators are going to say is that's going to cost $300 million of state money. We just don't have it. And so we've got to go out and we're going to have to confect communication tools, handouts, emails, phone calls, letters that give some really salient talking points for our members to contact their legislators and say, hey, did you know COLAs are paid with excess earnings of our money and doesn't cost the state money? Things like that. Thanking them for their support, because we haven't had a COLA since 2015. Explaining to them that before we put any money in the experiencer or COLA account, that we pay hundreds of millions of dollars to pay the debt down, and that our funding level is going up, a huge surprising jump this year, and that our retirement benefits are one way to recruit and retain teachers. So we're going to work on all of that. I'm going to skip to the 5th bullet and where it says TRSL LRTA COLA meeting. So we're going to do something a little different. You know, I go to the board meetings and I talk with our retiree reps and I talk with Catherine, and we kind of go back and forth. Catherine, who has been a terrific advocate for retirees, has agreed to meet with a group of us. In fact, this Friday, I'm hosting a luncheon that will be with our state president, Janice, Catherine Whitney from TRSL, myself, and our 3 retiree board members, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Bodan, and Clyde, who's coming on the board. And we're going to go through and talk about the process for getting that COLA. And in other words, and then we're going to map it out. For instance, how does a COLA happen? Does that mean our reps or I go up and give public testimony and demand a COLA? No, that's not the way it works. So for instance, and Catherine can speak to this more clearly, she would bring a recommendation to the board for a COLA based on the valuation. Then our retiree board members, along with hopefully the other TRSL board members, would recommend awarding a COLA. Then what's next? Does the agency then vet out and find a legislator to support the bill? And then when do we come in? Well, we're the advocates. So then once that's appropriately done and we know when that'll happen, which maybe by the end of January we would know, then our organization would have we're going to do what we call content calendars. In other words, we're going to map out everything we need to do from January to the end of the session. What are the communication tools? When are we going to do the voter voice? When are we going to do the letters? When are we going to do the phone calls? And so we would be the advocates. That's what our role is advocates. So going through and mapping out this Friday, a step-by-step from what does the governance do? What does the agency do? What do the advocates do? I think is going to provide a really, really good opportunity for us to have a plan in store for that. Then to the virtual activism, the voter voice is a tool that we are going to use. We'll use it for both the COLA and any other legislation we see coming up. We may see another hybrid bill come up. That's very possible. And so I am working with the Louisiana Public School Coalition. We've had several meetings, and Catherine has attended a couple, attended our last one, where we'll let the active teacher groups and the employers be the hard hitters with opposing the hybrid plans. But what I can do with my experience and as an advocate is help facilitate those talking points and getting people to talk. So I think we will have, if we see another hybrid bill come up this year, we will have a plan of action, and we'll have one loud voice, always thinking ahead what we need to do. TRSL officer, LRTA officer elections. As you know, we do officer elections every 2 years. So when we do our January newsletter, it will have a ballot for our members to vote on. We know now that it will have 2 names on it for second vice president. We do a newsletter in January. We plan to make the COLA the headlines of the newsletter. Research shows nationally, if you can promise a COLA or think they can get a COLA, that's how you get your membership up. I think some of our membership is down. We haven't had anything really successful in terms of COLA since 2016, although we have won the defined benefit battle every year since then. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a map each year of what we successfully done, defeating what bills each year and what bills we've supported. In other words, we're going to map out and quantify our successes and use that as an advocate tool for that. So that's basically my report. I'm going to ask Jennifer to put some slides up right now. We did that this morning. This is, I'm ending my report on a benign note, but we did do a lot of carryover. Our building has suffered some terribly delayed maintenance for several years. And part of that is me pinching pennies and saving money. But we did have carryover from last year, and we are doing some major updates to our building. We did report to the committee that we replaced 3 of our 4 air conditioners already in our building for this year. We have 2 tenants, and these are some before slides. We did have a crew start the repairing of rotted boards, caulking, and painting on Saturday. I was up here a lot with them all weekend, driving back and forth, but just showing a few slides of the next time you come up there, you won't see rotting boards. We're changing the color of the building. They started, but it was pretty exciting coming to work today, not having to climb bushes and look at broken boards and faded paint. So just wanted you to know that we're replacing our signage and updating that. We want our members to be proud when they come into our building. And even though we're a modest organization, school teachers like us to take care of stuff. And so I want you to know we're taking care of that too. So Madam President, at this time, that concludes my report. If anyone has questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Rodney. That is exciting news at the end there. It does look really great. So glad we're finally get someone to come out and take care of that.
Well, just one other note. You know, we got hit really hard with the hurricane here, and the whole southern part of the state. It's just taken us a long time to find somebody to do the work. These happen to be people that have done work for me in my own home, but even the materials, he had to go to several places just to get the paint. And if you haven't bought a board lately, plan on making an investment. So we're getting the work done, and we're getting a good price on this because we did several bids. We'll probably spend about $5,500 The other bids were $9,000 and $10,000, but we did vet it out. We hope you'll be proud next time you come to our office. Thank you.
Right. Does anyone have any questions or comments about Rodney's report?
I got a question.
I have one question, David
Dr.
Gillette
Bodan?
here, and I don't know if it's a Rodney question or a Taylor question or just what, but as I look at the cost of living COLA, and I'm just asking this question to help me prepare to understand to talk about it, but if I look at the table 3, in 2014, a COLA raise was given at a cost of $200 million there, and again in 2016 with 226 plus million. Am I correct in thinking that in the 2014 and the 2016, if you add those two together, you get over 400 million? Our retirement system is absorbing that, and still we have money to put in the COLA fund, Rodney or James or somebody.
I'm going to let Catherine comment, but that they run the numbers on how many retirees would qualify, what is their average life expectancy. That's how they come up with that number. And then that would pay them for life. That's the amount of money it would take to pay for that COLA for the expected duration of their life. And that money's put aside in a separate account. And so once it's put aside, then it's there. It's like a savings account.
Okay,
and,
very good. So this new raise that we hope that we can get is going to cost 249 million. So I'm understanding that is a recurring amount of money for life of those people that are receiving the COLA raise. So we had a really good year this year. What if we have a lackluster year next year? That money is preserved so that once you ratchet up in a COLA, you never come down. You continue to ratchet up. I mean, stay where you are. So where does that 249 million come from if we have a lackluster year?
So that it's going to be more than that, Clyde. That was a prediction, and Catherine will speak to that. But that's enough money to pay for everybody who qualifies for it for the rest of their life. That money's put aside.
Right.
So we don't need recurring revenue for that COLA because that's the expected amount we'd need for the retirees who qualify.
Okay, and that really answers part of it. There's somebody else now that's going to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, and Rodney, I can take that briefly, and I can handle it in my presentation as well. Just to echo what Rodney said, that is our actuary determining the actuarial costs. So she's applying the same assumptions that she would for benefits and determining how much is necessary for this pool of retirees who would be eligible, how much is necessary to fund this benefit increase for the remainder of their lives.
Okay, I understand now. I was wondering if the people would vote against that because they would say, well, if you have a bad year next year, well, we're looking at a preserving of those funds at the present time for life for those. So I'm
correct.
Understanding that now.
That's correct. And it's a good question, David.
And Rodney?
Yes.
But David, we do all of those things from an actuarial smoothed data point. We make sure that we account for the numbers to smooth out any major ridges. So this is, as Catherine said and Rodney said, we've looked at this, and this is what our actuary says it will cost based on the mortality tables to pay these folk until the end of their lives.
Okay, thank you, James. And I understand that any shortfalls come out of the James Taylor Fund. Is that correct?
Well, as Catherine, I think I've heard at the TRSL board meeting, the actuaries who do these predictions based on their standards, they don't like it when we don't die on time because we don't have enough to pay the code. So,
thank you.
And Dr. Taylor said that'll be up to Dr. Bodan now since he's leaving. He's responsible for that. Not Dr. Taylor.
I have a question. This is Roxanne Lagarde. What's the eligibility criteria for that COLA?
So Catherine will cover that, but basically you have to be 60 years of age and retired for 1 year.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
And did
And
we
we're gonna
put,
put
did we
that in
put
the
a cap on
newsletter.
it,
and our
Rodney? I've
handouts.
forgotten.
It's a 2% this time because of our funding level. And I think it's on what, around 65,000, Catherine?
Yeah, that's actually up to 68.
68,000.
The first 68,000 benefit.
And it was 60 the last two times that we did it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But because our funding level's above 65%, in fact, quite a bit above now, it'll be a higher COLA. And I'm going to let Catherine communicate that. But let me say this. No, this is going to get a big pool of retirees, but we'll always get calls about somebody who was 59 the day the COLA was awarded. So we're going to put all the criteria in our newsletter and supporting documents so that when we go for that COLA, people know what the criteria is, so that there are no disappointments. Did Emma have a question?
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Dr. Shepherd, yes.
This is Shepherd, and I have a couple of questions. And I know since we're looking at legislation for the COLA, I was wondering if you had somebody in mind that would under that legislation, or looking at somebody for that as an author.
Emma, could you repeat that? You're kind of going in and out.
Okay, let me get closer. I was really wondering, since we're talking about the COLA and needing legislation for that, I was wondering if you have somebody in mind that would offer that legislation for it.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Catherine speak to that.
Right, and Dr. Bodan will touch on that as well. But typically, the chairs of the retirement committees would sponsor that type of bill, and I've had conversations with both of them. So we would anticipate that one, or if it's possible, both would sponsor it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you for the questions, Emma. Madam Chair, I did have one other item. I apologize. I just want to give an update on our contract relationship with AMBA. We did renew their contract last year. That does go into effect this week. And it does include another $10,000 a year for administrative costs. We have had a few issues with privacy and data, but they've assured us and have apologized to the retirement agency that they're not going to unduly represent themselves or use their names or our names, but to follow the protocols. And one way we're doing that is develop protocols for those sales folks to use when they talk to people. And we are doing monthly meetings with them to vet through issues that we would have, avoid duplication of soliciting memberships, et cetera. So I did want to make the board aware of that.
Great. Thank you, Rodney.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions? I think we got a little bit into probably what some of you were going to present shortly, but good questions and good responses. So let's move on to item number 6, our membership report. And Lizette will fill us in. She is, as first vice president, the chair of that committee, and so she will report. And before that, I'd like to say congratulations, Lizette. I'm so excited to know that you will be president next term. Lizette and I met the first time when I became a district president. Sat down at the table for the first time at the meeting, and because she was District 3 and I was District 4, we were sitting next to each other. And Mr. Stewart came up. He was the president then, and said, I would like you to vote for my daughter, Lizette Watterson. She's running for the district president rep. And I said, oh, okay, well, who is Lizette? And she turned to me and said, I'm Lizette, and I'd appreciate your vote. I said, absolutely. We have been sitting next to each other ever since, as district presidents, and then as we moved our way up the LRTA leadership ladder. And I can't think of anyone else I would rather see follow me and I will still be there on your side as past president to be with you. And I just can't wait, Lizette. Thank you so much for running, for accepting the position. And now let's give us your membership report.
Good morning. Thank you, Janice, for those kind words. And I had forgotten that day. Rest in peace, my daddy, James Stewart, for getting us. And for those of you that don't know, James and I don't look alike, but I'm his adopted child. And it's a pleasure that I've had to serve. When I was asked to do that, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And in my ear was Mr. Rupert Breland saying, now look, I trained you for this a long time ago. So, all right, you got to get ready and do what you got to do. So I thank you all. Okay, also, in my presentation, a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. So I'll just hit just a little on that so that you all can know how important it is for this area, and that is membership. Membership matters so much. In our LRTA, we're the only organization that is used to represent retired teachers. We're solely devoted to advocating for Louisiana retired teachers. And for that reason, we need those numbers. And my appeal right now to you, the board members, and to all those that are listening in today is just to remind, I was just speaking with someone this past weekend and letting them know how important it is that they give their membership priority in their life. Because, for one example, I was talking to my sister-in-law and I told my brother, I said, well, for my brother's birthday, I'm going to pay his membership to Louisiana retired teachers. So in his card that he'll be receiving this week, it has his membership. And I'm also sending another one so that in the future, he will be auto deduct. And in talking, I was also able to see that there were some other people that were family friends and they had not paid their membership. They had been members before, but they had forgotten. So for that reason, I'm asking you all to just get a list from the office. The district presidents, get with your members and let them know that they'll contact Jennifer or Renee or Morgan at the office. They will be glad to get that list out to you and know that looking through that, we have a goal to reach. Within your packet, you have a form that has what we have our membership goals. Well, we still have those goals to reach. And, you know, you may be looking and saying, oh, District 2, I need 360 people. District 3, 307 people. And that might seem like an astronomical number because our numbers have dropped. Many we know through death, and many and most of those were those 600 members that Rodney was talking about were those people that were auto deduct. We're not talking about the ones that were paying every year, but we've lost a lot of members. But with the appeal, with the COLA that's coming up, and I've talked with the office and they've told me that in the past, when the COLA comes up, guess what? People want to join. When you're talking about money that way and what the insurance is going to do, they'll come out, and it seems like they come out fighting. And what do teachers do? We band together when we need to. And that's what we're going to ask you all to do and to push. Start now, getting them ready for their email so that they'll know. If they don't have email, I met with a unit in North Louisiana through Zoom. And I told them, everyone is not on email. Everyone does not do the Zoom meetings or whatever, but someone knows someone. So just pass the word to them that way. And then they can pass it on to those people that need to be told and educated about how important it is to sign up and also to fight so that we can get these legislators on our side and see the reality and why it is needed. And I thank you for my report. And if there are any questions, I'll entertain them at this time.
I have a question.
Yes.
How can we, I guess, encourage our members to do the auto deduct? I have some members, I don't know why they just afraid to death of the auto deduct. And I try to explain that it's easier, it's no problem, but they're still afraid to do it.
Hey, Freddie, I can respond to that if you want.
Okay.
We have encouraged, and again, I give credit to Catherine's vision for this. We have a formal policy with TRSL that enables them to do this. It is a formal operation of our office. Since we have the responsibility for protecting their retirement, we also have the responsibility of making sure that that deduction is done exactly according to policy. So there is virtually no chance of this causing them any harm. It happens once a year in their April check. And since we do this now, and I don't remember when we passed the formal policy, but it was sometime in the last couple of years. Actually, I think it was after Catherine came on board. So just let them know that we are protecting them just as much as we do in everything else. So nothing's going to happen. Fill out the envelope, send it in, and we are protecting the integrity of their payroll. Does that answer you, Freddie?
Yes.
And Freddie, let me just say this. We've looked at our appeals pieces, our letters, our envelopes, our branding, and we've reordered it. So like to join, it's $30 a year as an active member. We moved the auto deduct to the first option because sometimes they just check that first option, which is paid yearly. So we're making it the number one choice, auto deduct, so that we're hoping that that'll solicit more auto deducts.
And may I add one more thing as well, Mr. Rivers? You might want to point out to these people that they are not authorizing access to their bank account. They are authorizing one deduction from their retirement check. Their bank account has nothing to do with it. I know a lot of people don't want to give access to their bank account. This is not access to their bank account. It is giving TRSL permission to make that deduction one time. We have been actually doing this since the mid 80s, I think, and we have had virtually no problems, no issues at all. So 20 plus years, no problems.
Lizette, I have a question for you. On page 6, the membership campaign spreadsheet, is this a combination of associate and active members, or is this just active members?
It's just active.
It's active.
Yeah.
May I make a comment on for Mr. Rivers?
Yes, Genevieve.
Too, and a lot of my membership, we carry envelopes with us everywhere. And when I run into someone I know that has not joined LRTA, I ask them to consider and tell them all the reasons why. And then I'll say, if you'll fill this out, and I would suggest that you join by auto deduct, I will mail it for you. And I take it and I mail it for them to make sure that it is actually done. Because many times they'll put it aside thinking, okay, I'll do it, and it never gets done. So that has helped a great deal. And I have to tell you, that is not my idea. Initially, Shirley Sally from Sabine Parish started that, and she's like a dog with a bone when it comes to membership. She does an outstanding job.
Oh, yes, very good.
And I know Genevieve takes those envelopes everywhere because she's been dropping them in church pew baskets because we got 3 ministers joined last week alone.
All right, Genevieve. All right. So any other questions or comment on Lizette's report?
But I have another minor question. What
Sure,
about
sir.
the, I guess auxiliary people, who join, they're not teachers, but they've joined our group.
Associate members, yes.
Thank you, associate members, yes.
What about them?
Do they auto deduct?
We don't do auto deduct for associate.
Oh,
because they're not collecting a benefit. So
okay.
Right. Okay.
Janice,
Anything
one more
else?
comment. Yeah, this is Lizette again. One more comment. Again, I want to thank everyone for your prayers and support during the, well, it was first, I did one meeting from North Carolina because my son was sick. And then a couple of months later, I did one from Houston because we had death in the family. Then I had to do one because COVID hit this house. And but I want to thank my LRTA family publicly. Let me tell you all, this is truly a family. This is my family, not by blood, but by love. But we couldn't be any closer. And I thank you all for your continued support. And also thank you for accepting me in the new position. And I thought twice, 2 or 3 times about it. And before Larry passed away, he was like, what are you talking about? Go on and do it. So I think I'll have my angels. I have some angels up there. James Stewart had already gone and started preparing a place for me here, Mr. Breland. And so Larry will be joining them. So I want to thank you all and look forward to working with you all. And Janice may not have been in person her 2 years, but she will be in person with me all along this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lizette. Looking forward to it. We do have other board members also that are going through some things right now with some illnesses with their family, devastation after the storm. And as Javella mentioned in her prayer, we're certainly keeping all of them in our thoughts and prayers. All right, so let's go on to all right. We are now to, item 7. And that would be Clyde with the Program and Legislative Committee report. And
Madam President, you do need a motion to receive the membership report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked down for a second and I missed that. I'm sorry. So motion 7 is on the screen to receive the
I
membership.
move we accept the motion of 7 membership.
Mr. Rogers has moved to accept, and David Gillette has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. All right, so now on to Clyde, and he will present his report. And you've received an attachment with that also, and that's item 7 in your packet. And also, I've enjoyed working with Clyde on the board. I appreciate his cooperation and service and look forward to continuing to work with him also. Congratulations, Clyde. Please present your report.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that comment. Let me just start out by saying that thanks to Zoom, the Legislative Committee was able to meet many times this past year and a half, saving the LRTA a lot of money and keeping the members of the Legislative Committee very active and involved. We started out our first meeting where we had a revision of the an update of the legislative priorities of LRTA. and had several meetings after that. And then on June the 8th, the Legislative Committee met via Zoom again to discuss several items. I'm going to touch upon those because it's rather lengthy. The minutes are rather lengthy. The first agenda item was a recap of the 2021 legislative session, and Director Watson gave an overview of the 8 bills from the 2021 regular legislative session that we followed. Those bills are all listed in your minutes with a little synopsis of them and their outcome. The second agenda item was an update on the government pension offset and windfall elimination provisions of Social Security. And again, Director Watson gave us an update on an overview, I should say, of House Resolution 82 in Congress, which is the Social Security Fairness Act of 2021, and the House Resolution 2337, which is called the Public Servants Protection and Fairness Act of 2021. And very briefly, one is a total repeal of the GPO and WP, and the other is a 2337. The other one is a partial repeal. The committee discussed ways that these bills could be advanced in Congress and decided to ask Representative Garrett Graves to join us in a future meeting, which he did, and that would be the next committee report. We also had a discussion about future COLAs for TRSL retirees. It was a little early at that time to get into detail about it, but we did touch upon it. And of course, the TRSL board elections were going on at that time, and Director Watson encouraged our members to vote. With no further business to come before the Legislative Committee on June 8th, that meeting was adjourned. Then on August 13th, at the request of the Legislative Committee, a meeting was held at which Congressman Garrett Graves and Congresswoman Julia Letlow met with members of the LRT Legislative Committee, LRTA Executive Committee, the LRTA Board, staff members, and I should include in there a few local units presidents that were in attendance. The main item on the agenda was a discussion of House Resolution 82, Senate Bill 1302, and House Resolution 2337, which are in Congress. Representative Graves gave an update on all of that. Those are the government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision bills to repeal those. In attendance of that meeting, which was unexpected, was Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Both Congressman Graves and Congresswoman Letlow gave us a very thorough review of what's going on with Congress with the repeal. At that time, they had, and I say they, but the author of the bill had 208 co-signers, and as of a few days ago, it was up to 232 co-signers. Following Congressman Graves and Congresswoman Letlow's presentations, the members of that were present had an opportunity to speak on the issue and ask questions of both Congressman Graves and Letlow, and then the meeting was adjourned. Madam President, that concludes the report of the Legislative Committee. I was very brief. I didn't read it, but I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the June 8th and August 13th Legislative Committee meetings.
President, can I add one comment? First of all, thank you, Clive, for your leadership for pulling the meeting together with Congressman Graves. and let low. And since that time, I have been contacted by Representative Mike Johnson, who sponsored the state resolution last year to repeal. Last Friday, he hosted a luncheon here in Baton Rouge that was attended by President Janice Hernandez and myself. And we had all of the agencies at the table that are affected by that, first time in state history. So we are going to try to work as a collaborative effort to get it repealed, however unlikely. But just to say, we've had more, at least energy this year than we've ever had. Thanks, Clyde, for your contributions. And I'm thanking Mike Johnson for his help, because he wants to spearhead part of the leadership for that.
Like Rodney said, this is the closest that we've ever gotten to having the repeal of the GPO and WEP. It has, as Congressman Graves pointed out, it's picked up a lot of traction because of advocacy groups like LRTA that have been pushing it among its sister organizations across the country.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions?
I need a motion to accept the reports.
I so move.
Mr. Rogers.
Second, Javella Williams.
Mr. Rogers has moved to accept the legislative committee reports, seconded by Javella Williamson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
If I could have one point of personal privilege, Madam
Yes,
President, I just wanted to say I'm very excited to having been the second vice president this year, and I'm looking forward to serving next term as first vice president with Lizette as president. And I think we're going to have a lot of accomplishments again as we carry forward. I'm also very privileged and thankful that I will follow in Jerry Bodan's footsteps. It's some big shoes to fill to replace him on the TRSL board. And yeah, I'm looking forward to returning to the board and working with Catherine and the rest of the TRSL board members and the staff at TRSL. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. And Clyde is also a school board member in Terrebonne Parish. So I've just decided he doesn't like to sleep. And so he's getting involved in all these things, and we certainly appreciate all his efforts.
If anybody wants to move to Terrebonne and live in District 6, I'll give you that seat.
All right. I don't think you're going to get too many takers on that one right now.
That's been an interesting undertaking.
I'll bet. All right. So now we've talked already a little about some of this, but now Catherine Whitney, our TRSL director, will fill us in on our COLA overview and outlooks. Welcome again, Catherine.
All right, good morning. Thank you all again for having us. We're always happy to be here and give you all an update. Now, echo what Janice said earlier. We certainly hope to the next update we give it for it to be in person, but always happy to be here virtually. I know everybody's getting used to this. I'm going to cover a couple of different areas, and I'm going to focus on the valuation. I'm going to talk about COLAs. Dr. Bodan, Dr. Taylor will chime in after me and talk about a couple of topics as well. Many of you probably saw, and I know Rodney's given you some previews of an amazing investment year for TRSL. Well, happy to report that the board received its June 30th, 2021 valuation last month, or actually earlier this month, at its last meeting, and it has similarly very good results on multiple fronts. So I'm going to start with really valuation results. If you go to the next slide. And when we present on our valuation, we typically give you a 3-year look, so you can kind of see the types of changes that we're seeing. So just general census data, you'll see our active membership did decline. We've seen small increases each year over the last several years. We did see a decline this year. That is something that we're not concerned with, but we're certainly going to watch it. to ensure a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. We've got COVID. We had some increased numbers in retirements. So it's something we're going to watch, but not something our actuary is concerned with. We did see that kind of drop back in 2013-14 as well, when we saw some increased retirements. Retiree number jumped up to 81,620. That's not unusual. You'll see if you look at the 3-year view, we see about the same number of retirees each year. We did have a little bit of an increase this year, but saw from 19 to 20 a decrease. So it's really those increases have the increases we saw this year, when you average it, are about what we've experienced. Drop participants at 2227, that number continues to decline. That too is not surprising, since the 2004 change in the drop laws, where people entering after that point in time only get a money market return versus a system return. It's not as attractive as it used to be for people to go into drop. Total benefits, and this is a number that is important for you all as you're out in the field talking to membership, retirees and legislators. Our total benefit payments, and you've heard Dr. Taylor talk about this quite a bit, is $2.3 billion. So that's $2.3 billion. Nearly 90% of our retirees stay here in Louisiana. So that's $2.3 billion that are going into your local communities and your local economies. Okay, next page. So investment returns, as I mentioned before, this is a record, and I've actually have a couple of slides just on investments to tell you how phenomenal our program has done. And of course, this year, record breaking, the highest return we've had at 35.7%. That drove our net assets up to our total net assets up to 27.7 billion. A gain of 6.5 billion in 1 year, which is remarkable, as you can imagine. The drop interest rate, and this is for those that entered before January 1st of 2004, was 12.15%. And that is the actuarial return minus, and I'm going to cover the actuarial return on the next slide. But so those of you, if anybody's in the call that entered drop before January 1st, 2004, that's going to be a nice return for you all. As I mentioned, part of what drives those drop entries going down, the money market, while we saw a little bit over zero the last 2 years, this year will be zero. So those that entered the program after 2004 will not receive an interest hike on their drop accounts this year. If you go to the next slide. One back. Yeah, a couple back. There we go. The actuarial return, and this is the return, we mentioned it earlier, and Dr. Taylor mentioned how we smooth results. So someone asked about the impact of the COLA, and if we have a down year next year. One of the things that we do in terms of investment returns, and it's so that when if we have a volatile year, whether that volatile year is up or down, we don't have that immediate impact, whether it's on the employer contribution rates or the assets or the debt. We, for lack of a better way to describe it, we average our returns over a 5-year period, and that's what results in the actuarial return. So this year, that's the 12.65%. The other thing we look at, this average actuarial return at 8.15%, and you see that that's a number that, as a long-term investor, it's incredibly important to look at how we perform over the long term. We're with someone from the time they enter the profession in their 20s to the time they leave the earth. It's important to look at how we're performing over the long term. So you see in 21, that 30-year average was 8.15%. We like it to be over what we expect to earn, which is right now at about 7.4%, but going down. So it's still exceeding that. Another big measure, these next two are as big as the money going into the experience account, our funded ratio. And we've got a slide, and I'm going to show you one, and Dr. Bodan is going to show you one as well. Our funded ratio jumped from 67.9 in 2020 to 71.8. That is an amazing increase. And when I show you the longer term, it's even more amazing. What I don't cover here on this slide, and I'm not going to go into a tremendous amount of detail, one of the reforms that were put in place starting back in 2009, and this one was actually in 2014, said once we reach 70% funding, the amortization of our gains and losses goes to a 20-year time period. So right now, every year, whether we have a gain or loss, we amortize those amounts over 30 years prior to this funded ratio going above 70. So that is a very, from a funding perspective, from a statement as to where this system stands, that is a very significant mark to meet. And the next one, even that's good. The unfunded accrued liability decreased by $1 billion in this past fiscal year. So all just tremendous news on that front. So you can imagine, you know, it's a very happy board meeting earlier this month as we got these results. So if you go to the next slide. Okay, so that was a picture of how, okay, so the allocation to the experience account. So one of the things that we wait for, you know, you saw the big investment returns and everybody was wondering, okay, how does that impact COLAs? So what we look at is the amount of gains that we receive, which is driven by that actuarial return that I spoke of earlier. And given the results and given that high actuarial return, we actually made a large allocation to the experience account, $265 million. Before that, it was $97 million in the experience account. So that 97 did accumulate some interest. Rodney mentioned we had a minimum benefit increase, and Dr. Bodan is going to hit on that as well. So that reduced some of the amounts that were in there before, and it resulted in a balance of $269 million. There were additional funds that could have been deposited in the experience account because of the large gains. But right now, the experience account is capped at the amount that we can authorize in a COLA. So we're at the maximum we can authorize is 2%. So the experience account was capped. So we were able to fill the account up enough to fund that 2% benefit increase. So, and you'll see last year, you see the historical piece. We were at the 97 and at the 369. So that is, someone mentioned the 250 earlier. That number has gone up with the cost of that 2% COLA. When you compare it to 2016, I think that was a 1.5% COLA. So that's why that number would have been lower. And there are some other changes that increase the amount of that's necessary. So let's go to the next slide. And I think we cover on the next slide COLA eligibility. Someone asked that. This gives you the detailed rundown. This is on our website. I know Rodney's going to be getting information out as well. And Dr. Bodan is going to hit on this in terms of process, but basically it's not automatic. So there is a process that the board will make a recommendation, the legislature will approve it. Dr. Bodan is going to go into a little more detail about that. But generally, you see the eligibility requirements on this slide. So you must have received a benefit for at least 1 year and be 60 years old. No age requirement for disability retirees. Beneficiaries, generally, if the retiree meets those eligibility criteria, same for survivors, then the beneficiaries and survivors will be eligible for a permanent benefit increase as well, a COLA as well. And someone noted it is limited to the first 60,000 in benefits, but that is indexed by law, and that number has grown to 68,000. So that'll be included. If you go to the next slide. So I have a couple of slides here about investment performance. So if you look at, we of course this past year earned the largest return in system history, 6.5 billion added. And this just gives you a breakdown of how each of the types of markets. So we invest both in public and private markets. You'll see how they performed. So the 35 total, public markets at 33 and private at 38%. And then 10-year, again, as a long-term, we look at the 10-year, and that was at 10.18%. So that too is a number we compare to okay, what did we expect to earn? And that's at the 7.4%. So that's what we compare it to. If you go to the next slide. And this just gives how this program has performed over the years. You'll see our ranking, and this is compared to other public plans with assets greater than 5 billion. We ranked number 1 this year, and you see everything in yellow is where we ranked number 1. So it gives you a picture of just how well performing the retirement system that you are a part of has done from on the investment side. Of the 10 years, there's only 3 years that we've been number 2 or number 3. The rest were number 1. Okay, a couple more slides that we like to show with UAL balance and payments. This is one that we like to show the UAL balance going down. In the bottom bar are the employer contributions. So you see that they're level, and then where there are some big payoffs upcoming. Okay, if you go to the next slide. And Dr. Bodan is going to cover on this one, so I'm just gonna gloss over this one because he's got a similar slide. Funded ratio, amazing, 2010 54 up to 71%. So just, I can't speak enough to how great that is. We go to the next slide. And actually, I'm going to have you, Rodney, cover the bills. So the one from 21, again, thank you all for your support on the age 67 bill and getting the word out on how detrimental that would have been from a public education perspective. So again, just appreciate it. I'm not going to rehash 21 because Rodney covered that. 22, what we expect, of course, the big one. If you go, there we go, COLA. Rodney mentioned we're still on alert to see if there are any benefit structure changes. Pension funding will always be a topic, as well as payment methods of the UAL and the employer contribution rate. There's a legislative audit report recently that shed some light on whether or not the legislature may want to look at how it pays for the UAL, which right now it's as a percentage of payroll. And on return to work, always a consistent topic that we see with recruitment and retention. An issue from the teacher side, we would expect to see return to work again this session. And that is it. And I apologize for my voice and my water being out. Sorry about that. So I'm going to, unless you have any questions, Dr. Bodan is going to cover some of these areas in a little more detail. I will.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine, Catherine. Thank you. I'm the same thing. I've just been guzzling water the whole time and keep my throats are scratchy. Thank you so much always for sharing all this information with us. Such wonderful news too. We're so excited. Thank you. Thank
Madam
you.
President, could I just say on a personal note, Catherine and I have known each other for many years. We got our start together down in the RSD after Katrina. And I just came back in August from my national meeting where I was serving as president of ASSERT. And Renee went with me. And there's not a state in this country that has a better relationship with their retirement agency than us. So I'm grateful for her always being open and receptive and professional and supportive of us. So thank you, Catherine, for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Definitely. Thank you.
Janice, can I say one little quick thing too?
Sure, Clyde.
We here in Terrebonne Parish are all very proud of Catherine as well. She was born and raised right here in Terrebonne and went to South Terrebonne High School and has now become the director of the TRSL system. And I can't tell you how pleased we are to have Catherine have taken the helm of our retirement system.
And your former student.
And my former student.
Yes.
I wasn't going to say that.
I know you were, but that is important. That is important. Certainly are proud of that.
And Clyde, you taught her math, didn't you?
Calculus.
See? So you know she knows what to do with numbers.
We knew she was going to go on to bigger and better things. We just didn't realize at that time she would be taking care of all the retirees in the state.
Yes, it's great that you'll be working with her on the board.
All you've done.
Thank you.
All right, now we're doing pretty well on time, but I know it is getting close to the witching moment, and we always want to hear from Dr. Bodan and Dr. Taylor, our representatives on the board, because they give us vital information. We do have handouts, and we'll ask them to give us their main points. We've heard quite a bit now from everyone on this, but we know we want to hear something from them. So at this time, Dr. Bodan, and then he will be followed by Dr. Taylor talking about system evaluation and then future COLAs. Dr. Bodan.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I wish Catherine would have told us about the connection to Hamner and put that on her resume, because she probably wouldn't be sitting in that chair today.
I'll go you one step further. Little do we tell each other or tell people that Catherine's bigger sister, her older sister, is my sister-in-law, married to Christine's brother, who is my brother-in-law. So, and down the bayou, you know, that means you're blood relatives.
Catherine, there's a little bit of nepotism here. Anyway, let me start off by saying that I'm happy to start off with good news. You've heard some of this a few minutes ago, that we were pleased on July the 1st, we were able to pay a COLA to some of our oldest and longest surviving retired members with the monthly benefits of those receiving $14.50 or less, which is the federal poverty rate for a family of two. When that was completed, there were 652 actual benefit recipients who received this benefit, cost the system $6.9 million, and it was paid out of the experience account. The $6.9 million is not an immediate cost because that has to cover the lifespan of those 652 that received it. So the actual cost per year of the first year is about $85,000 to give that COLA. So looking ahead, talking about a lot about the 2% COLA, I'll just bring you up to date. At our board meeting next Thursday, a week from this Thursday, we'll entertain a report from our actuary, who will go through with all the details to give this COLA that the board must adhere to, which is all in statute. But she will confirm that all the things that were mentioned, that Catherine mentioned, were met according to the actuary. The age limit, the 2% consumer price index is below the 5%, 5.4%. The experience account has 369,000 in it. And the maximum is right at 68,000 for somebody can receive. And that we've met all of our funding requirements, et cetera. So she will go through all of this with us to confirm that, and she recommends that, or will recommend that we have met all the detail for giving this COLA. The board then will prepare a resolution to that effect, and including that resolution that will go to the legislature, which will probably run a page or 2 pages, includes everything in statute that we have met to do this. I plan to make a motion for this experience, this resolution, and I hope have Dr. Taylor second that motion. So we'll get it all done a week from this Thursday. As you know, the legislature's got to approve the COLA before we can pay it. Now, this resolution is going to be sent to the Speaker of the House and President of the Senate, bringing them up to date on what action the board has taken. And that will be sent shortly after our meeting. Further, staff's going to be meeting with both chairman of House and Senate retirement committees, because they're going to need somebody to, hopefully there'll be a number of them who join and sponsor a bill that ought to sail through the legislature, we hope, given the authority for us to pay this COLA effective next July 1st. And that was mentioned, stuff continued to be studied. I think Rodney mentioned it, including Catherine, that certain committees are looking at what can be done to make it more palatable to give COLAs. And there's so much involved in the statutes that have been passed that it's seldom, as you saw this year, that the last hurdle, which is now $266 million, had to be passed before enough money could be split 50-50 between the system assets and the experience account. I don't know when that'll occur again. It's been 6 years since a COLA will be given. So 2022, and the last was 2016. And it took I think a miracle in the market. Luckily, we were well diverse in our investments, both you saw a while ago, private and public, that generated that return for us. The ability to pay COLAs as it stands now is unpredictable because it relies entirely on the system investment returns. And we would have more than 369 million in the account and it's shown, but we're limited by statute that it can be more to pay 1-2% COLA. If we go to my first slide, some of it would be repetitious. Jennifer, is that it? Okay. What I did, I was on the board 8 years serving retirees. During that 8-year period, you can see where the investment growth went from 17 billion to 27 billion. There was a $10 billion increase. Not much you can see from 14, 15. It dropped in 16, went back up in 17, good jump in 18, then change in 19 and 20. And from 20 to 21 is where we took the big $7 billion leap. So that's a result of our investments, et cetera. Next slide. I think Catherine covered some of this. I still use the same 8 years to show our market rate of return net of the fees we pay the money managers and consultants. 2014 was a big year for us, 19.5%. And you can see how that market can change from year to year. It dropped to below 3%, dropped to 1.11%, back to 15, down to 11, down to 6, less than 1% in 2020, and back up to 35.7%. So when we say the market drives, you can see there's stuff so much out there in the market, both domestic and international, that can influence what the returns are going to be. Next slide. There's still some similar information. I think that the actuarial rate of return with the drop interest rate, this is on the old drop, I call it. And you can see the actual rate of return going across, how it fluctuates up and down. And remember, several years ago, I made a presentation that when you're dealing with the actual rate of return, we now have that smoothing effect so that we don't have to deal with the market rate one year like this year at 35% and next year, if it would drop below, something would happen. It dropped to 5% below. You'd be doing a disfavor, put it this way, of taking all the money one year, for example, from the employer contribution rate that is determined, and they would use, it would drop tremendously, 3 or 4% for next year with this 37%. The following year, we may be asking them to put up 7 or 8%. So the smoothing effects under this would show what the drop interest rate, it has not changed as much from 13 to 11 to 6 to 9 to 9 to 7 to 6 and now 12. So the biggest fluctuation has been from 6 to 12%. But if you did market rate, you'd have a much different result. The bottom line is what you actually get because the system is allowed to keep 0.5% for administering the drop program. And Catherine showed, I don't have any other slide, but she did show one slide that we will fund it basically at 55% in 2010 That was the funded. So in other words, you could say, if you had $1 to fund a retirement system, we only had 55 cents to pay the debt and pay the retirement benefits. And that has progressively grown up until this year, we're at 72%. And that triggers a better COLA that you can give. You get into the 2% bracket then. Let me say that in closing, I'd like to express my much appreciation and honor to sit on the LTRA board as a TRSL retiree representative. My term, as you know, ends the end of December, and Mr. Hamner is going to fill my, I wear number 6 shoes, so it's not going to be hard, Clyde. Fill my shoes. I've seen both good and challenging times during my tenure, but I'm thrilled about the positive news that we did this year that Catherine shared with you about the means for the future of our retirement system. I believe that the partnership between TRSL and LTRA is as better as I've ever been since I've been on this board. Let me say this and added things I don't have here. And I've been on this board since 87, 88, representing higher ed until 2009. Came back here at 2014 until December here. The system is much better organized today than it was back then. The money wasn't large when I came on this board, about $2.5 billion. Changes have occurred legislatively throughout the process. And let me say, accountability finally set into this board, and you all will remember this. When we went out and hired another director, we hired Maureen Westgard. And she came in, restructured staff, put in all kind of programs for educating the staff and requiring accountability from everyone, and put us in a position of having to compare ourselves with other retirement systems across the country on cost-wise, how much we're spending on various things and functions. And by the time she left, and you can see how returns did over those years, the changing of consultants, the money managers greatly involved. The board is involved greatly in investments. And I'd mentioned at an early board meeting with you guys that easily 85 to 90% of the time this board spends is on investments, managing the fund. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to all the retirees and all the actives. So when we look that there are 60, 70, 80,000 retirees, the combined total of all membership is about 160,000. So we take that seriously, and the people that we hire and bring on to manage the manager have been screened by consultants, by staff, et cetera. And we try to make the best decisions that we can, and we have that responsibility to do that. So when Maureen stepped down, we brought in Dana Vicknair. She was on staff, trained, ready to go. She agreed to give us 3 years. We signed a 3-year contract. And long before her last year, we began talking what we're going to do. Says, let's not go external. We've got trained people. And we thought Catherine was ready to take the reins, and she did. And I can't think of a better choice. So we stayed in-house from the time Maureen left until now. And we have a tremendous staff that you can have faith in, both for operating the system, both in train when meeting with legislators and also with the money managers that we come in and interview. So I would say right now, I believe it that the system itself is in the best capable hands that you can imagine. Secondly, that LRTA is in great hands as well with Rodney. And the combined two working together. But one thing we've got to remember is that we are a public body. You all are a private entity. So when it comes to legislative matters, we can only provide information we can, as a board, we can take positions on bills that come up. We for them, we're against them, we're neutral. On some, we want more information, but we cannot go in and lobby and talk. As a board member, cannot go. We let the director, the lawyers, and actuary provide and answer the questions to the legislature. They're better prepared than we as board members are. So anyway, thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to serve you all for 8 years. And I think Mr. Hamner's going to hit the ground running. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bodan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Bodan.
Okay.
Yes. And good luck. And you know, you're
All
welcome
right.
to come back. I'm sure you're going to have so much free time. You're going to come and visit us at our meetings and everything. So we'll see you.
I'll let you know if it's going well, if my retirement check comes in every month. If it does, I know the two guys that are going to be representing you.
Right. We'll hook you up.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now, Dr. Taylor, and we're coming in under the wire, Dr. Taylor. So we've heard a good bit. I know you got a little bit more to tell us about some future COLAs. So let's bring down the curtain.
And then let me thank Jerry for all the work. He and I have had a great relationship for the 7 years that I've been on this board. I congratulate you, Janice, for getting close, and the other former presidents there. Y'all remember I sat where you are about, what, 12 years ago, 15? I've lost track of the time, but what we're doing is important. And Jerry, again, thank you for all the times that we have had to deal with some of the tough ones. The fact that we set up the succession system that we did that has Catherine in that position, and what we have in place now for the future of this organization, I believe is going to work, and is going to work well. Clyde, welcome aboard, bud.
Thank you.
You're one busy man. I can remember those days, but I don't do all that anymore. I do this, and I still try to keep the bad lawyers from staying in the business. But these are the things that I get there. You and I, we have to take where we are now and figure out a way to think better. I think that the ugly press we're getting relative to this business of, quote, the retirement costs coming away from education, that's a matter of structure. I mean, this money is not the school boards or the whatever in the first place. It's simply a pass-through. And we've got to look at better ways of getting the money from the state treasury, paying this down somewhat as a straight mortgage that they owe us, because people get confused and they think we somehow owe folk. No, the state owes us. So you and I will have a lot of strategy sessions with Catherine and Rodney in terms of and others, and how we're going to get this, not only get it more effective and efficient, but give us a better press on it so that people really understand what we're doing. Again, I thank Catherine and I thank Rodney. We have worked a long time to get this, but we've got about, if we take out the beneficiaries, we've got about 71,000 retirees out there, Lizette. Only about 25,000 of them are paying. We need the rest of that money, because if you do the math quickly, 30 times 70,000, we could really do the two things that LRTA was supposed to do: be the advocate for full retirement benefits, and second of all, make sure we have a well-organized local unit to see that our local retired teachers without advocates. During the years that I was in Orleans, and the school teacher, only the minister, one person from the Congress, and her sister showed up for her funeral. We retired teachers anywhere in this state can strengthen our local units to bring that up. I don't know, and a representative in the same body. So you better get your extra cycle because we'll keep you busy. But again, Rodney, Catherine, Clyde, Jerry, it's been great. And for those of you who know, my seat comes up next year. And hopefully, if I'm as healthy as I am now, I'll be standing there with with Clyde for another 4, if they decide that that's something I can do. If the health goes otherwise, then we know there are several people who could slide in behind me and do what I'm doing. So we'll go from there. Now, the last thing, there is the Public School Coalition is extremely important. The work that has been done with them is looking at the whole picture. And our doing a great job in selling retirement is an important part of getting adequate numbers of highly qualified, motivated classroom teachers. Those of you who know me understand my belief in what a teacher should be. And that's why we've killed that bill wanting to try to keep people in the classroom till 67. The kind of person that would have attracted, I don't want teaching my children. That's just simply, we don't give, I'm looking at Nancy, you were a principal, I was a principal, you may get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, but it is highly unlikely you leave at 4 in the afternoon.
Never.
Never did it. And if you're a teacher, I was a music teacher, so I always had rehearsals afterwards, and the coaches and so forth. So, and Rodney with his you cannot ask people. I think we've done a great job there, but we want to continue this coalition that Rodney and Catherine and all the rest are working with the School Boards Association, with the 2 teacher groups or 3 teacher groups, I'm not quite sure now, because we must give our people the vision. Those of you who know me, Lizette, know that teacher, I go back to Isaiah 50:4. What is the duty of the teacher? To use the voice to uplift the weary. And then go into the book of James, where it warns us that not everyone should be a teacher, that the teacher is held to a higher level of truth. But we want to find those, recruit them, and keep them for the third. I'm looking at my list here, or looks like Jerry's pretty much covered that. But we're going to have if my memory is correct, Rodney, next legislative session is one of those free-for-all sessions. So we're going to need to be able to be on top of it. We need to soon again get every and the 39 senators units to make invited to everything that we do. I'm very proud, dedicated. We work hard. My closing remarks is, and as 2 of our managers remark, this is 2021. Now must deal with constant transformation. We are doing this in how we manage your money. To do this, we have to transform and look at systems that are working and make sure that we strengthen them, and don't be afraid to modify those who don't. So, Catherine, if I've missed anything that you and I talked about, I don't know what it is. But if so, please feel free to pitch in anything I've missed. Other than that, again, thank you for providing me this important work. I enjoy every bit of it. So we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you. We appreciate all your hard work on our behalf. All right.
Madam President, we are starting to experience some internet issues, probably because we've been on. So you might want to move on.
I was just about to say that if anyone has any other questions, feel free. We can, you contact us, contact Dr. Taylor, anyone. We'd be happy to help you. I was about to say I was having some problems again. I kind of lost a few words in there. So I think it's best we wrap up. We really only have one more item. We were going to talk about the meetings in the spring and fall, item 10. And I gave you the schedule. There it is again. And we will, like we have here with District 8 as the first meeting. So you have that. And remember, we will be meeting in person. And our spring meeting probably will be in Baton Rouge, where we can pick up what we were going to do this time at Embassy Suites. Excuse me. And then the next fall meeting, hopefully we'll get back on schedule and we'll have it that with one of our other districts around the state. So Rodney, was there anything else you wanted to talk to about those meetings or any other comments?
No, we will plan to meet face to face, but always have plan B, and we'll keep you informed. I thank everybody for their service and their kind attention in what was a very long but productive meeting.
Yes, thank you. I did. I met with the staff last week and we were very excited. Starting to throw ideas around that we're going to cover in the spring. And that is a good point. We really do hope that will happen. And we thank everyone for participating today and for taking the time. You know, normally this meeting, the board meeting, would take an afternoon and then we do the retirement things the next morning. And so we got everything done in a few hours. We know it's a little rush, but it was very important to share this information and take care of our business. And so at this time, if there's no other business, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chairman, I'll move that we adjourn our meeting.
Mr. Mr. Hamner and Ms. Waterson have moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. No opposed, I'm sure. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.